We've got a gorgeous channeled message this week from Isla, the mother of creation, and she's talking about that sense of emptiness or loneliness that I think is really common to really all of humanity. And she's saying that, talking about what it is that we are really seeking to fill that space. So, welcome back to my channel, you guys. I am so glad you are here. Thank you for joining me. And anyone who is new, welcome. My name is Ann Tucker. I am a trance channel. I channel from the angelic realm and I channel Isla, the mother of creation. I do that by going into a deep meditative state or trance. And from that trance state, I bring through, I connect and I bring through messages, healing, and information, which I share here with you guys on YouTube. So I will share, my format is I will share the original channeling, which I did yesterday. If you have a hard time focusing on the words during the message, don't worry about it. There's a lot of frequencies that come through, so that's wonderful. Just relax and let them sink in. And then know that right after the actual channeling, I do go through a breakdown of the message and talk it through. So you'll get all of the content and more. We tend to get so much more out of it by taking that time. So that happens at the end of the video. We go through the breakdown. So I also wanted to remind anybody who is in my peace bathing program that we have our peace bathing session this Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific. So I will see you there. And you're welcome to join us if you'd like to come. Peace bathing is my monthly healing program. It's a beautiful session that we do with the angels, and it is designed to help us keep pace with the shifting energies that are leading us through the shift of consciousness. So every single month we do a new meditation, a new healing, and that healing we're meant to use the recording all month long. So we do the session live, and then we get the recording. We use it as you go out into the world. You have experiences, and you bring those, if you get triggered, if you get upset, if something happens, you bring that home and you bring it into your session. The meditation opens a portal up between you and the angels, and they come through and they help you to move through those experiences. So it's meant to be used as an ongoing healing practice. So to help us to move into this new state of consciousness that we are all super excited about. So if you would like to add to your regular ongoing healing practice, or if you don't yet have one, please come and join us. It's on my webpage. It's anntucker.com/peace-bathing. So love to see you there. All right, so go ahead and take a breath, and let's go ahead and go into the original channeling.
Blessings. I am grateful to be with you once again, and I bring forward thoughts of your own permanence, of how things that are everlasting, that go on forever, are part of who you are and how you are becoming. Welcome to the new beginning that is always starting, that is ever at one with yourself. You are endless. You are eternal. There is always something new around the corner, and it is yourself. I wish to share with you now in this dialogue, in this conversation, thoughts about what eternality means for you and how it is expressed through your genealogy, through your experience of being, and for you as a human, and how it affects you. Your eternal nature has no concept of death as humanity perceives it. There is only the continuation of the eternal force of your light. There's not a moment where you grow dim. There's not a moment where the shutters close and the lights are out and you forget what you are. As the eternal soul that is your truth, you are forever, and your light, being eternal, never fades. There isn't a moment where you forget yourself, where you are turned off and back on again. There's one stream, one rivulet of water that continues and continues and continues. There are, however, within the expression of your light, many waves of transference within which you continue and discontinue your thoughts and what you are and the qualities that accelerate your learning. Thus, you are in a space of eternality, of continuity, and of perceptual union with the divine, But within that space, you give rise to a multitude of new beginnings, to new starts, new times, new frames of reference. Thus, you are forever both eternal and forever experiencing new beginnings. There can, however, be hardships in this conceptualization of yourself, in these waves that rise and fall. For each tomorrow feels like something that must be accomplished, that comes within itself as something to be given, taken, or received. And I would say to you that living is no small accomplishment. To come into form, to come into a body, is something not taken on without deep consideration. It is something that must be spent out of yourself into the fullness of a new consultation of your own divinity. It is as if you splinter that part of you that lives forever, and a new tangential force moves away from you for a moment before it comes back again. And there is truth to be found. There are new things to be thought of, to be justified, and to be celebrated when you experience this. But there's also the profound effect that it has on your truth and your truth of knowing. That when you are disembodied, you have a concrete foundational relationship with divinity that never fades. It is eternal just as you are. It is like a light that can't be dimmed. And when you are embodied, that transference does not include the conceptualization of that eternal relationship. You are separated from the force of your own divine nature. This can lead you down pathways that are not always beneficial, that can lead you into struggle, into hardship, as you have often experienced. You know these things, but what you may not know is that the nature of your eternality cannot transfer into physical form, and the physical self that you are feels the absence and the longing for it. It is as if you want to become something that you cannot conceptualize just yet, like a memory of self, of what it is to feel that longevity, that eternal sense of flow, where there are no demands made that cannot be met eventually, where time is above and below and surrounding you, but has no meaning to the eternal self. Here on earth, you know there's something missing. There's a feeling which you equate with God, and God is ever present, and you are God within. But it is your eternal nature that you are seeking. You are wondering what it feels like to be back in that state where there is no hesitation, where there is no folly, where there is only the centeredness of the self, never on guard, never worried, never fearful, where there is always the sense of the profound nature of your own light. And this lack is what obligates the human to hardship. It is the sense that you are seeking something that does not exist, as if a truth that has once been felt is no longer truth, because you cannot find it where you are. And doubt rankles you. It moves through your bones and tissues. It separates you from yourself. It causes you to investigate further, to try harder, to seek, to look for what is missing. And in so doing, you become increasingly obligated to prove to yourself, to define reality and self, to learn about what is missing. What I would suggest for you as you are moving into deeper and deeper relationship with your own truth is to accept the light that you are as something not only tolerated and loved, but is something that is, in fact, eternal, even though you are not eternal in the body that you inhabit. That the light that you are takes on a permanence the moment it dissolves from the body and returns back to the fullness of what you are. The eternality was never lost. It was only forgotten. It only feels like you are separated because you can no longer dialogue as easily with the truth and the fullness of you. It feels as if you no longer exist. While you are living in this life, that source inspiration, the fullness of your own self, is never far, and it is never gone. It is always in presence with you. It is as if you have divulged a small piece of yourself into this experience of separation, and your consciousness is held here as if you are under a microscope being inspected by all that remembers you. And you are here, the only one in that collection, not to be aware of the parameters of the experiment. And you must settle yourself ever more deeply into the body, into the tissues of this existence, and live it as full as you can, experience as much as you can, and live as joyfully as you may. When you do, your memory starts to settle within you. There are pieces, there are moments that come back. The truth rekindles itself from inside you. And slowly there is a transference that begins. And your belongingness to the all of you becomes increasingly real while you are in presence on earth. It is as if the connection, once lost, becomes found again, and not through death, through the expression of your own light in this physical form. You are generating, through your living experience, the channels through which that light can flow. And the more that you are in connection with this life, emboldened through the expression of yourself in it, the deeper you are in dialogue with living in this joyful manner, the more of you, of this higher state of you, can flow through you. And this then begins to reignite your connection back through to the fullness of your consciousness. This has not been achieved very often by humanity. Most humans stay separated from themselves until they depart this earth. But, I say, it is possible for you, for where you are now, for how you are existing, for how you are changing. This connection, this reunification while in physical form becomes increasingly enchanting as something to wish for. You may stretch yourself now without obligation and begin the journeying that is required to reignite this possibility. The healing that is done, the opening of the heart chakra, the acceptance of what you are, these are all important steps on this pathway. But each and every moment that you live in the authentic expression of yourself, where you find your fullness being lived without reluctance, where you guide yourself into the joyful expression of what is in your heart, every moment of this widens the channel through which your higher perspective will flow. Thus, every day is a new opportunity, every day a new beginning, a new start within which you may remember yourself. You may draw that point of light, which is your brightness, back through and into you. You are never separated. You are never apart. You have only forgotten how to speak with yourself. You have forgotten the connective tissue, which is already there. This voyaging that you are on, the pathway of separation, has been one of great learning. But now the time has come where separation serves you less and less. And the great joy of being incarnated now is that remembering is the task. Coming back to your truth, lingering no more in the hesitation and doubt of the unfamiliar, and coming full circle and becoming attuned to what it feels like when you express the fullness of you, when you love joyfully what emerges from the depth of the light that you share with the fullness of your own consciousness. It is always there. It is only forgotten. I say bless you. I say thank you. Goodbye.
So, yeah, beautiful, beautiful message. And I love that it approaches this concept. I think it takes a couple of concepts that we hear in spirituality and explains how they are in fact the same concept, things that we talk about and understand differently. You know, this idea we hear about people who do have NDEs and cross over, and they talk about walking into the light and feeling this love, or people who, you know, or in religion where they talk about trying to get in through the pearly gates of heaven and going to a place and feeling like the place is magnificent. And what Isla is saying here is that we are, when we think of it this way, we are externalizing heaven. We're saying that heaven is a place outside of us that we have to go to, right? There's judgment about whether or not we can get in and all this stuff. But even if it's a person who doesn't believe in judgment, there's still the idea that it's external and that we go to the other side and we are surrounded by this external force of love. And what she's saying here is, okay, flip-flop that and understand that you are not going to a place. You are that what you're feeling is actually you. that is it. The reason why it feels magic is not because heaven is magic. It's because when you go there, you connect with the magic in you. That the feeling is not coming from the outside, it's coming from the inside. So to me, this is a big flip-flop, right? And we don't hear this. We do hear that we're supposed to remember our truth. You know, find the truth of it. When people are like, what the heck does that mean? Find your truth. You know, and she's saying that is what it is this idea that incredible sensation of love that we feel, we talk about it, it's radiating onto us and we're being, you know, it's coming down and we're receiving it. What if all this time it wasn't coming from the outside, it was radiating from the inside? And she's saying the connection was never lost. We just forgotten that it's there. It's always been there. And she says our expanded state of self is right here. Like it's been in us the whole time. But because we're so separated from it, because of this experience of coming into the body and forgetting, that we forget that it starts from within us. And because we forget that connection, she says, then we start to disbelieve that it was ever true. So this feeling that we're missing is this feeling of being eternal, which is the feeling of like, imagine what it would be like if you were truly eternal, where it would mean that there's no deadlines, because it would be like, oh, it takes 2 more weeks. That's okay. Like I got all the time I need. Like she's saying, yeah, time is all around you, but it doesn't affect you because you have all the time in the world. So you could be like, well, I'll take the garbage out next week. and you know, and then she's also saying, so it's the idea of being freed from time. It's the idea that there's nothing that can hurt you. There's no fear. There's no suffering, right? There's this sense of your own energy as being fluid and flowing and never being inhibited in any way. And so what we're really missing is the free flowing expression of our own energy. And we maybe tap into that in moments, you know, when we're feeling like divine inspiration and stuff like that. Maybe in those moments, it isn't because God is shining on you. It's because we finally allow ourselves to open and we shine God. And then we feel it as if it's coming from outside. But we, being human, we externalize everything and we think it's happening to us, right? Rather than realizing we are the source of it, just like reality, right? We think reality is this external thing. And in fact, it's a reflection of who we are on the inside. So it's a very cool message with this perspective. And I think it, you know, as we break it down and talk it through, And I think messages like this, when they give us a total flip flop, I think it takes a while for it to sink in, for us to really breathe in and really understand how this affects the way we think about ourselves and spirit and reality. So talking it through is going to be really valuable. Okay, so you guys, well, let's jump in. So, first paragraph, she says, Blessings, I am grateful to be with you once again, and I bring forward thoughts of your own permanence, of how things are everlasting, that go on forever, are part of who you are and how you are becoming. Welcome to the new beginning that is always starting, that is ever at one with yourself. You are endless. You are eternal. There is always something new around the corner, and it is yourself. So, what I love about this question is that there's a juxtaposition, or this first paragraph is that there's a juxtaposition in the paragraph. Because if you are eternal, how are there new beginnings? Because there's no endings, right? If you're eternal, there's no endings. How are there? So how can you be both? And she's poking us in the first paragraph, already challenging us to understand the problem that we're facing. The whole reason we are in the pickle that we are in is because of this, because we have new beginnings and we are also eternal. And those two things don't seem to get along. So, and that's really the theme of this conversation and where that leaves us as souls having a human experience. So, so she goes on in the next paragraph and she says, I wish to share with you now in this dialogue, in this conversation, thoughts about what eternality means for you and how it is expressed through your genealogy, through your experience of being, and for you as a human, how it affects you. Right? So this is not, being eternal is not, it has I think a positive and challenging effect for us in the human body. She goes on to say, your eternal nature has no concept of death as humanity perceives it. So that's our natural state of being eternal. When we're in that state, we really don't understand what death feels like. So I think that kind of explains why some of us sign up for some really difficult lives. Because when we're eternal, like we don't have, I actually had very clear dreams of my life, like my time before being incarnated. And I remember the feeling of signing up for this life. And I felt invulnerable. I felt like superhuman, like the best day I've ever had times 100. And I'm flying around in spirit with a pack of my buddies. And I'm like, let's go in. This is going to be awesome. You know, I have absolutely no concept that I'm going to get there and it's going to like suck. I had no idea. So, and I just, even though I sign up for all the stuff, when you're in that eternal state, you have no reference point because you're eternal and nothing hurts you. And there's nothing that even slows you down. She says in here, it doesn't even dim your, there's not a moment. You never get sucker punched when you're eternal, not even once, right? So we have no clue. So we're over there. We're like, yeah, that'd be great. I want, give me more things and make it harder. You know what I mean? And then we come down here and we're like, oh, what was I thinking? So, so we have no concept of what it is. And then she says, there is only the continuation of the eternal force of your light. There's not a moment where you grow dim. There's not a moment where the shutters close and the lights are out and you forget what you are. And we know what that feeling is, right? In the human state, that happens. We have our light gets dimmed and we get our shutters closed and we're like, oh my God, I'm never going to be the same. And that happens to us. Yeah. And she says, as eternal souls, that is your truth. You are forever, and your light, being eternal, never fades. There isn't a moment where you forget yourself, where you are turned off and back on again. There's one stream, one rivulet of water that continues and continues and continues. So massively different experiences of existence from our unincarnated state to our incarnated state. And they too do not understand each other. That's kind of the big message of this section, is that our eternal self really does not relate to the human challenges, can't understand them, because to be in that state, you have no reference point. So can't understand them. And being where we are, we might look at what it is to be eternal and recognize that's the answer to all of the pain and suffering. So we go on next paragraph, and she says, there are, however, within the expression of your light, many waves of transference within which you continue and discontinue your thoughts and what you are, and the qualities that accelerate your learning. Thus, you are in a space of eternality, of continuity, and of perceptual union with the divine. But within that space, you give rise to a multitude of new beginnings, to new starts, new times, new frames of reference. Thus, you are both. Thus, you are forever both eternal and forever experiencing new beginnings. So, and by this, she's talking about different lifetimes. She's talking about that we have the ability as a soul to incarnate, and those incarnations have a beginning and an ending. So we have both. We have this sense of our true self, which is, as she says, in a space of eternality, of continuity, right? There's one continuous thread that doesn't end, and perceptual union with the divine. So we have a constant sense, a perceived sense of our union with the divine, which we don't always have when we're incarnated, right? That's a huge piece of this, is that when we're on the other side, there's never a moment that we're not perceiving that divinity is all around us and inside of us. And then and we're able to have these experiences again and again and again of new, starting a new life, trying a new thing, living in a new way through these incarnations that we get to have. Next paragraph, she says, there can, however, be hardships in this conceptualization of yourself, in these waves that rise and fall. For each tomorrow feels like something that must be accomplished, that comes within itself as something to be given, taken, or received. So what this means, this paragraph, there can, however, be hardships in this conceptualization of yourself, that these tomorrows feel, right? They feel like they come with a gravitas. So what she's trying to say here, I think, is that we lose ourselves, that there's these different waves of new beginnings and endings, these incarnations, and we lose ourselves in those experiences, that those experiences start to feel like reality. They start to feel like who we really are. So we start to believe that we are the body, right? The human that's living in the body, as opposed to understanding what we really are. So, and then we get engrossed in the goals of the life, right? We get super focused on, I got to get my chores done. I got to get my kids to school. I got to do whatever it is. We get super engrossed in our lifetime goals and in the physical experience of living, and we forget the bigger picture. And then she goes on to say, and this is that idea, it is because, right, we get encapsulated in things with beginnings and endings, and we get too granular, we get sucked in. And then she says, and I would say to you that living is no small accomplishment. To come into form and to come into a body is something not taken on without deep consideration. So she's saying, yep, it's a difficult experience, and we don't do it lightly. So I think she's telling us this to say, hey, this is not easy. What you're doing is not easy. You don't take it lightly. This is not a thing where you tripped into a life and you're like, woo, you're like, this is a big deal to come into incarnation. It is something that must be spent out of yourself into the fullness of a new consultation with your own divinity. In other words, it is like it is to have something spent. What it makes me think of is when I see solar flares coming off the sun, that you look at the sun and all of a sudden there's this offshoot of energy, and sometimes they kind of come up and then they kind of fall back into the sun. But think about how much charge there is in that flare that comes off the sun. And so that's like the sun spending energy out. And I think that's what it's like for our soul going to incarnate. It literally spends energy. It sends the energy out. And she says, it is as if you splinter that part of you that lives forever. And a new tangential force, and tangential is like an offshoot, like a branch, right? A tangential force moves away from you for a moment before it comes back again. And the moment is the circle, the whole life, right? So it's like, here you are, the big soul, and then you have this force of like, I'm going to go live on earth for now, and you kind of, there it goes, and there's the life, and then you die and you come back. And that's the experience from our higher self perspective. And the goal, right, is to learn. So, and she says it is a new consultation of your own divinity. So the point of it is, it's a consultation of our divinity, is about to learn something new about ourselves, that we are divine, and we want to have investigate that divinity and learn more about the divinity. And that's why we do it. So it's not something we take lightly. We do it because this is like our reason for existing as a soul, is to learn more about our divinity, about the spark of divine that we carry. Then she says, and there's truth to be found. There are new things to be thought of, to be justified, and to be celebrated when you experience this. But there's also the profound effect that it has on your truth of knowing. that when you are disembodied, you have a concrete foundational relationship with divinity that never fades. It is eternal, just as you are. It is like a light that cannot be dimmed. And when you're embodied, that transference does not include the conceptualization of that eternal relationship. You are separated from the force of your own divine nature. So she's saying in this paragraph that, like, yep, this is awesome. You're going to go, you're going to learn about yourself. But the challenge involved is that through this separation, you forget. You forget about you and what you really are and what it's like to be eternal. And you forget that you forget all of that, the comfort, honestly, that comes from knowing you're eternal, from knowing that nothing can really hurt you. You lose all of that when we come into form. So, next paragraph, she says, this can lead you down pathways that are not always beneficial. This can lead you into struggle, into hardships that you have often experienced. You know these things. But what you may not know is that the nature of your eternality cannot transfer into the physical form, and the physical self that you are feels the absence and the longing for it. So here is where she starts in on, here's the where she's making the flip in terms of us understanding what we're experiencing as a human. That what is it that we are actually chasing? What is it that we're longing when we feel the absence? We feel like we don't belong. We feel like we pray or we ask spirit, we ask for something, a sign, tell me that, my guides are here. Who's here to help me? Who's here to support me? We have this sense that we're constantly looking for something outside of us to come and support us, love us, give to us, provide for us, whatever it is, rescue us often. And what she's trying to say is that this idea that heaven is not a place that we go to, that it is an experience of our true nature. And that is what heaven is. It is the experience of ourselves when we are reunited with our fullness, with our divinity. And we feel it as an external place, but it is in fact the experience of being eternal and having the full expression of our divine essence inside of us expressed. So when we come down, because we lose that, we forget that, we lose that connection. Even though the connection is always there, we forget that it's there. She says that we are here and we feel the absence and the longing for it. And we don't necessarily know what we're missing, right? It's like this sense inside of you that there's like this pit or this hole what is that pit and that hole? And we keep trying to figure it out. So, and we've named it a lot of different things, but here she's telling us what it is. So she says, it is as if you want to become something that you cannot conceptualize just yet, like a memory of self, of what it is to feel that longevity, that eternal sense of flow, where there are no demands made that cannot be met eventually, where time is above and below and surrounding you, but has no meaning to the eternal self. She says, here on earth, there's something missing. There's a feeling which you equate with God. And God is ever present, and you are God within. So here she's saying, so it isn't that God isn't there, but we're not missing God. God is always there. God is ever present, even on earth. And the way, how do we know that? Because everything on earth is God. So we're surrounded by God. God is everything. So it's not a thing where we're not connected to God. God is everything. And so we're missing something, and we think that something is God, and we think it's heaven, and but it's not. So to me, this is the big aha. So we know, we feel it. We have the sense of change. We have the sense of absence. We label that God. We externalize it. We assume it's something that was taken away from us, right? And then she says, but it is your eternal nature that you are seeking. You are wondering what it feels like to be back in that state where there is no hesitation, where there is no folly, where there's only the centeredness of the self, never on guard, never worried, never fearful, where there is always the sense of the profound nature of your own light. And I think if you think about why is it that we crave that, when we do think about whatever it is that we're craving, when we have that pit of loneliness or separation in our stomach, right? It is that sense of, is it vulnerability? What is it about us that makes us crave that? Where do we feel weak? Do we feel like we need support? Are we looking for love? What are we seeking? And almost all of those questions, whatever they are, can be answered by connected by the idea that it's our eternal self, right? It is this sense of our, it's not God because God is all around us. It is our unique spark of the divine. It is our flow. It is our claim on the divine, the part of us uniquely that is divine. That's the piece. That's the thing that we're seeking. And so, and it's the feeling of it. Like, think about what that would feel like if you had that if you were back in that eternal sense of yourself, there would be nothing that you were afraid of at all. Like, you would literally feel invulnerable. All of your weaknesses, everything that ever felt where you felt like you had to defend yourself, or you felt like you had to protect yourself, or you felt like you had to work too hard, or you couldn't get work, or whatever it was, whatever was stressing you or making you fearful, none of those make sense in the context of an eternal self, right? In the context of a self that has this eternal flow of divinity moving through them. So she goes on to say in this next paragraph, she says, and this lack is what obligates the human to hardship, right? So it is, she's saying, this is the thing that creates and generates all the hardship. This is where hardship comes from, is from this missing, this longing for our eternal self. She said, it is the sense that you are seeking something that does not exist, as if a truth that has once been felt is no longer truth, because you cannot find it where you are, and doubt rankles you. So imagine, it's like, we call it like, do we lose our faith in God? Do we lose our faith? Well, what we're losing is faith that we ever were eternal, that state is actually us. So it's this idea that because we're here, we can't feel it. We don't believe it's true. And we can't even imagine what that feels like. In the same way that our eternal self can't imagine what it feels like to die, right? That our higher self, our eternal self can't imagine what it feels like to be here. And we can't imagine what it feels like to be there. So, but we can't imagine it. But at the same time, there's this part of us that remembers it, right? In the same way that you might have a vague feeling about a past life, like my daughter came out of the womb obsessed with all things Japanese. She's, as a little girl, wanted to have fish and rice for breakfast. Not even joking. Like, she clearly, she clearly had so there's this feeling inside of her that she can't name, right? There's a connection, that there's a memory that she can't identify. And it's the same with us about our feeling of our eternal self, is that there's a hole there, but because we can't grab it, we can't find it, we can't know it, we doubt it. And that doubt creates hardship. It creates loneliness. It creates suffering, right? So this is where our suffering begins, and we call it separation. So she says, the doubt rankles you. It moves through your bones and tissues. It separates you from yourself. It causes you to investigate further, to try harder, to seek, to look for what is missing. So interesting that the human response, when we start to feel like we have this loneliness inside of us, or this hole inside of us, is to start to try to control it. Is we start to try to dig into it and discover it, and we try to find it, and we're trying to dig inside of ourselves, as opposed to what's actually needed, which is to get into flow, right? We detour into this idea of control because we doubt it, right? The doubt is the first thing. So then we're like, well, okay, then I have to prove it, right? So I'm going to prove it by trying harder, by seeking, by looking, right? I'm going to work it. I'm going to work it and work it and work it. And that actually creates increasing levels of separation, because the more we work it, the more separated we feel. So it doubles down on this idea, as it pulls us further and further away from flow. So then she says, and in so doing, you become increasingly obligated to prove to yourself, to define reality in self, to learn about what is missing, right? So we try to answer the questions with here, and try to solve it by learning, as opposed to feeling and flowing and relaxing, which is what's going to let that light through us. We don't understand that we can't connect to it. There's nothing that we can learn on earth that's going to reconnect us to our eternal self, right? The only thing that can reconnect us is inside of us. We're not going to find it in a dictionary or an encyclopedia, right? We're not going to learn it on earth. We're going to learn it inside of us. So then she says, and this idea that the more that you the more that you get separated, she says, you become increasingly obligated to prove to yourself, to define reality. And so I love that idea that because we doubt, then we feel like we have to prove it. And in the proving, and that proving can take so many forms. It occurs to me that like think about even in our own journeys of spirit, how one of the most exciting things are the little demonstrations that we get, that each of us gets them in different ways. Some of you are big on angel numbers, like, well, you'll get, and that's super exciting. Some of you have incredible serendipity. My dad has dimes and pennies show up for him magically, like magically in random places, and it's so exciting when those things happen. And why is it exciting? Because it's proving to us, right? It's giving us evidence. But each time we're craving that proof, like, and I am absolutely guilty of this, because especially in the beginning when I was so skeptical, because I was deep in this experience, right? Looking harder, because I felt the doubt. I was looking harder. Every time I tried to connect, if I was, channeling or meditating, I would doubt it, absolutely doubt it. So what my guides started doing in the beginning is they would start my meditation. I was really, I started out my journey very, very clairvoyant, and then that kind of expanded. So clairvoyance was sort of my key gateway, was my gateway drug to channeling. And so I would see things that they would start out the journey and I would see something. And then and then it would go on from there, and it would seem like a non sequitur, like a weird thing. And then later in the day, I would go out and I would see that thing in reality, and it would be something unmistakable. So often it was Poseidon. And I would be in the meditation. I would see it. I'd see myself coming in, and there would be Poseidon holding his trident. And I'd be like, I'm seeing Poseidon. Like, why am I seeing Poseidon? And then Poseidon would fade, and then the meditation would go on, and I would see other things. And then later that day, I would go out to lunch with a friend, and she would pick a new restaurant, and we'd go, and there, painted on the side of the building, 2 stories high, was Poseidon with his trident, and it was like, the Greek restaurant or whatever, and there's Poseidon, or another time, same thing. I'm doing my morning meditation on my elliptical, and this time I see Poseidon, and he's got the trident, and he's got a conch shell, and I'm like, okay, here's Poseidon again, but this time he's brought his conch shell along, and then the meditation goes on. And then later that day, I was down when I was living in San Diego. I went to UCSD to try to return a package because the Amazon fulfillment center was there, and I could not find it. I was looking and looking. It was a big box. I'm carrying it for like a half hour around this huge campus trying to find the library. And I finally find it. And right in front of the door is a 10-foot tall statue of Poseidon with the trident and the conch shell, marking my entrance. So, like, how cool is that? So, and of course, totally thrilling for me. And they were proof, right? There was proof that they were showing me, okay, everything that came after this experience, what you saw, because this was true, that means everything that came after it was true too, right? But this is me, where I am obligated to prove to myself, right, that I'm not in flow. I'm not willing to just accept what comes through. I'm closed to it because I'm trying to pick it apart and to analyze it. I'm searching so hard that I'm not flowing. And so not to say that I wouldn't love more of those experiences, because they're really fun, but I find that I get less and less of them the more that I'm open. So okay. So then she goes on to say, what I would suggest for you as you are moving into deeper and deeper relationship with your own truth is to accept the light that you are as something not only tolerated and loved, but as something that is in fact eternal, even though you are not eternal in the body that you inhabit. And we know that we're eternal, like we know that our soul is eternal. We know this, but do we know it? And I think that she's getting into it. Do we hold it in the body? Like, we have a conceptual understanding that we're going to cross over and we're going to live forever, but we don't keep that in the body. We're very focused on our body is going to die. And then she says that the light that you are takes on permanence the moment it dissolves from the body and returns back to the fullness of what you are. The eternality was never lost, only forgotten. And this is the key piece of it, right? It's really about the idea that we are still that, even in the human body. We're not in the human body and suddenly separated from our eternal self. We are still eternal. We're just having this human experience. And then she says, and that we've just forgotten it. It only feels like you are separated because you can no longer dialogue as easily with the truth and the fullness of you. It feels as if you no longer exist. So this is the crux of it, right? Because we can't feel it. We can't feel it being eternal. It feels to us like that does not exist. It's a little bit like with little babies when they go through that stage of development and they get really into peekaboo, because once you disappear behind your hands, they really think you're gone. And you open up and they're like, "Oh, you're back. Oh, you're gone. You're back." And it's like, and they really believe it. And that's us. That is us with our eternal self, and we think it's really gone, but it's not. So, and by the way, I want to correct myself when I said that I don't still get those experiences where they show me something. They do still give me those. There's moments when I still get those. And I love it. So I don't want them to stop. So I take that back. Please continue with those because I love it. So, and I can't help that. I just do. I love those little moments where they give me a proof point. The one most recent one I had was a really good one. And sometimes I'll do it where they'll show me scenes from one of my past lives that I'm aware of, and then I don't understand what it is, and then I look it up later and I recognize, oh, it was like a little, very unknown scene from that life, and I can connect it and say, okay, that's my proof point. So yeah, I don't want them to stop those. Please continue those. They're really fun. All right. So then here we go. So then she says, while you are living in this life, that source inspiration, the fullness of your own self, is never far and it is never gone. It is always in presence with you. So the concept of separation, the concept that we're cut off from it, is an illusion. It's not actually true. That we have full access to our eternality while we are in physical form. She says, it is as if you have divulged a small piece of yourself into this experience of separation, and your consciousness is held here, as if you are under a microscope being inspected by all that remembers you. And you are here, the only one in that collection not to be aware of the parameters of the experiment. So I kind of love that as a visual. Like I see it. It's like your eternal self is there, like, and all of your existence is like peering down at you, and you're down here, and you're like the little speck, like a little specimen on the microscope, and you have no awareness that there's all this hovering, spending so much time focusing on you, right? And so you're the only one that's not in the loop. I say next paragraph, and I highlighted this whole section because this is really this is a critical part. This is, what do we do? So we have this experience, this feeling of separation. How do we reignite that connection? How do we connect back? It's not even connect back, because she's trying to say the connection is there. How do we open ourselves to that connection so that we can feel the eternality of our soul while we are in the physical body? And so here she tells us how to do it. She says, and she's using the word must again, but she always uses the word must if she's going to use it in the context of, if you want this, then this is the steps that you can take. And these are steps that need to happen. So she's not saying you must do this. It's always a choice. But she's saying, and you must settle yourself ever more deeply into the body. So this is the opposite of what we think. We think, oh, I want to connect with spirit. I need to get out of the body and go up and have out of body experiences. And I need to be up into spirit. And she's saying, no, if you want to open your flow to your eternal self, which is really what we are truly seeking, we need to go down into the body. Totally opposite, right? This keeps happening. We have all these ideas of what we're supposed to do, and it always seems to be the opposite. So she says, you must settle yourself ever more deeply into the body, into the tissues of this existence, and live it as fully as you can, experience as much as you can, and live as joyfully as you may. When you do, your memory starts to settle within you. There are pieces, there are moments that come back. The truth rekindles itself from inside you. So why would this be? Why would it be that really enjoying our life, being fully present in our life, why would that open up our memory of our connection? And she goes on to say, here's why. She says, and slowly there is a transference that begins, and your belongingness to the all of you becomes increasingly real while you are present on earth. While you are in presence on earth, it is as if the connection once lost becomes found again, and not through death, through the expression of your own light in this physical form. So this is why, is this idea that when we freely express our light, so imagine that your connection, that what our eternal self is waveform. It is not a static thing that you can put in a jar. It's not like we think of everything as being so solid, like here we are in a solid body. It is a stream. She even refers to it as a rivulet, like a river, like it's a stream of energy. And so, how do you connect to a stream of energy? It's not by capturing it. If a river is going by and you get a mason jar and you collect a little bit of that river and you put it in the jar, are you holding a river? You are not. You are holding a jar of water. And so the only way to capture the river is to be in the river and let it flow through you. Like that's the only way to do it. That's the only way you can really be with the river is to flow with a river, right? You got to relax and you got to be in the river and let the river carry you. And that's the only way to truly be in a river. Otherwise, you're just holding water. And so this is what she's saying here is that when we really sink into the body and embrace living and do it with joy and do it with gusto and just try to experience as much as we can experience, when we do that, we are freeing the expression of our light, right? We are letting go of our reluctance, of our fear. We're not trying to analyze and pick apart and trying to understand. We're just being. And when we open up the channels to allow the river of our higher, that connection to flow through us, which is how we experience our own light. We experience it by letting it flow through us. So the tube is already there, right? The connection is made. We just have to turn it on by allowing it to flow. And the way we allow it to flow is by enjoying our life. Like, what a great assignment. What a good thing to be told to do. I am grateful. So then she says, you are generating through your living experience the channels through which that light can flow. So the more places of joy that we can find in our life, the more channels there are for our light to flow through us. So the more engaged we are, the more light we can shine, right? The more places of joy, and that joy can come through it's going to be different for every single one of us. The things that bring you joy, it could be being with others, it could be being alone, it could be gardening, it could be having grandchildren, it could be whatever it is. Could be vintage clothes shopping, speaking to my daughter. So whatever it is that lights you up, like that is an expression of joy. And the more you allow yourself, like imagine if you have a passion and you feel guilty for doing it, right? That's taking that joy and tamping it down and filling it with judgment. So the idea is to just live full out and to say, okay, I'm just going to enjoy this. So, and the more that you are in connection with this life, emboldened through the expression of yourself in it, the deeper you are in dialogue with living in this joyful manner. The more of this higher state of you can flow through you. And this then begins to reignite your connection back through to the fullness of your consciousness. So by opening up to the flow of our own divinity, we strengthen that connection, and then that connection flows through us. So I think so often, and I can definitely relate to this myself, is this idea that like when we think about what our connection, when we get connected with the all that is, what will it be? And I sometimes think of it as like it's going to be like the ultimate Google, where you can like tap into infinite knowledge and you have a question and it's immediately answered. But there's this feeling in the way I have thought about it until now, and I recognize it in myself. I think if I had ever really sat down and saw it, I might question it, but I don't think I had until this message, was this idea that of being able to put it in a jar. That I think we as humans are so used to things being consumable, right? That when we take things on, when we're going to incorporate something, or we buy it, we hold it, we grab it, we contain it, and that's when we have it. And we have it, right? Having means keeping, means not letting go, right? That's what it is to have something. It means you hold it. And if something is flowing through you, do you have it? Not by our definition. You don't have it because it flows through you. So we don't want to have it. We want to be it. And there's a big difference. So, and I think that's where we have to take, again, our human perspective on things and what it's going to be when we have this connection, have this connection, that we are trying to be the connection as opposed to have it. And we have to let it flow through us in order to experience it. It's a little bit like a song. You can't put a song in a jar and still listen to it. You have to let the song play. You have to let it expand and come out through you in a flow. It has to come to you a little bit at a time in a flow, and then you get the whole song. You can't take the song. I mean, yeah, you can have it on, cassette or, a CD or whatever. You can hold it, but you can't listen to it that way. It's not the same thing. To actually have the song be played, you have to let it flow. You have to let go of it and let it play. And that's us too. We have to play. And then, okay, so then she says, the deeper okay, so the more that you are emboldened through this expression of yourself in it, the deeper you are in dialogue with living in this joyful manner, the more of you, of this higher state of you, can flow through you. And this then begins to reignite your connection back through to the fullness of your consciousness. And then she says, this has not been achieved very often by humanity. Most humans stay separated from themselves until they depart this earth. But I say it is possible for you, for where you are now, for how you are existing, how you are changing. This connection, this reunification, while in physical form, becomes increasingly enchanting as something to wish for. And then she says, you may stretch yourself now without obligation and begin the journeying that is required to reignite this possibility. I love that she threw that in there. It's no obligation. It's like $9.99 money back guarantee. You can do this, no obligation. Like she's trying to say that you can decide you're going to do this, and there's no consequences if you don't do it, or if you just do it a little bit, or if you get excited and you try it for a week and then you forget for a week. She says there's nothing bad that can come from it. It's not like you're taking on new karma that if you don't fulfill it, that you're going to have to come back to earth again. She's saying, nope, that's not happening. This is literally all bless you, Kira. She's saying this is it's all good. No obligation. And she says, so you can stretch, and it is a stretch. We have to stretch ourselves. We can do it. There's no harm in doing it. There's no way we can cause ourselves any difficulty and begin the journeying that is required to reignite this possibility. She says the healing that is done, the opening of the heart chakra, the acceptance of what you are, these are all important steps on this pathway. So all the work we've done on ourselves is not for nothing. It's all very important. That all the healing, trying to open our heart, right? The idea that we're going to try to be in as little resistance to ourselves as we possibly can. And we heal that resistance to ourselves. It's really about going into the depth of our emotions, processing the feelings of our past and freeing them, right? Opening our resistance to ourselves. So all of that is good. And then she says, but each and every moment that you live in the authentic expression of yourself, where you find your fullness being lived without reluctance, where you guide yourself into the joyful expression of what is in your heart, every moment of this widens the channel through which your higher perspective will flow. So the healing is wonderful because it removes resistance and opens you up to flow. But you could do all the healing in the world, and if you then locked yourself in a cage and didn't have any fun, it would not get you there. Right? You gotta love your life. You gotta have fun. You gotta do things, right? Being authentic, an authentic expression of you. This is the most important thing. Same thing as if you do all the healing in the world, but you don't share yourself with anyone and you keep it locked down, right? So it's the light. And the reason for this is because we can't hold a river in a jar. It has to flow. So the only way you can experience it is if it flows. So you can heal and heal and heal and heal and heal, but if you don't let the river flow, then you don't feel it. So it's both the healing, absolutely. But then we also have to flow our expression. We have to figure out what is it that brings our joy and how can we live that? And it could be in any way, right? It doesn't mean you have to do like if you're like terrified of public speaking and you feel like I've got to climb that hill or I got to conquer that fear. If there's a part of you that really wants it, if there's a part of you that feels joy from that, great. But if you're like, no, it's going to suck, but I'm going to do it anyways because I do hard things, then maybe that's not your joy. Like maybe your joy is woodworking and that's great. It's really like being authentic is the point. Like what speaks to you? What ignites you? What lights you up? That's the point. So then she says, I love it. She says, every moment of this widens the channel. So it is like all things that she's been telling us about is cumulative. So every little bit we do, the better we are. So it's like it adds up. It's like going to the gym. You do a little bit, and then pretty soon you're feeling better. Then she says, thus, every day is a new opportunity. I love how encouraging she is. She's like, there's no risk. You got to do it. Like every day is a new opportunity. Try it. Every day, a new beginning, a new start within which you may remember yourself. You may draw that point of light, which is your brightness, back through and into you. The other thing I love about this is she's not saying that we're waiting for this opportunity. She's saying this is here now, that this is available to us. We can start working on this right now, like today. She's very clear on that we're ready to begin doing this, that there's enough of, like, our vibe is high enough now to begin this. She says, and I love this next part. She says, you are never separated. You are never apart. You have only forgotten how to speak with yourself. You have forgotten the connective tissue which is already there. This voyaging that you are on, the pathway of separation, has been one of great learning. But now, as the time has come where separation serves you less and less. And I love that, because it is this idea that it's not like we're trying to build or create something that doesn't already exist. We literally, and so if all we have to do is remember it, how fast could that happen? Like, it could literally be, if we were genuinely ready to let go of our resistance, it could happen like that. It could happen that fast. And you have probably experienced moments where you have healed something that quickly, where there was something that felt like it was heavy, that something that was part of your life, and then you healed and it was transformed, within, it could happen in a moment. So yeah. Then she says, and I like that she says, separation serves you less and less. So, like, the time has come, we can do this now. And then she says, and the great joy of being incarnated now is that remembering is the task. Coming back to your truth, lingering no more in the hesitation and doubt of the unfamiliar, and coming full circle, and becoming attuned to what it feels like when you express the fullness of you, when you love joyfully what emerges from the depth of the light that you share with the fullness of your own consciousness. It is always there. It is only forgotten. She says, I bless you. I say thank you and goodbye. Yeah, it's there, fly away. Yeah, so cool, right? Such a cool message. So, and like I said, encouraging. And also, I think it just brings so much clarity to the human journey and to what we've been experiencing and why it's hard and why it can be easy, and it's, as always, it is, we are our greatest challenge. We are in our own way. But I also love that the thing that we have always been associating with something outside of us is like, the best thing you can imagine is heaven, right? The best thing you could possibly imagine is being in heaven. And guess what? That's you. Like, how cool is that? That what everyone describes is like, oh, it was amazing, and singing, and the grass was tasty, and the flowers were gorgeous, and, like, we just talked to Vinny yesterday. He was like, he was tasting the grass with his toes in heaven. So that's why I said grass is tasty. I don't think you're eating the grass, but but the point is, all of that is actually you. That's actually the feeling of what it is to flow your divinity. And it isn't the external. Like, all of that might still be there, but you might not have the same feelings about it. And the feelings are what is your eternal self, the relationship to your reality and to your world. That is what we experience as heaven. Imagine being on earth right now, but feeling the way that people do in heaven. Imagine being on earth and feeling like everything is possible, that you just have to think about something and you're there, that the sky is singing and angels all around you, and that the grass is amazing and the colors are iridescent. And that has nothing to do with the environment. That could be here on earth. What is different is your perception, right? That you are perceiving it in a new way. So that's why she's saying, hey, you could start to bring this connection. You could open up this connection and begin. And that is why, when we hear in spirit that we are creating heaven on earth, it isn't because we're transforming the planet. It's because we are opening up to this eternality of our own, and our perception of the planet will change. And we will begin to see the world potentially in Technicolor. We'll begin to see the world like heaven, because that our capacity to see it that way will grow. Because we will be flowing rather than flowing our eternal self. Isn't that an amazing thought? Yeah. So that's what I got out of the message, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And it gives me pause. It makes me think, about my own sense of where is it that I'm trying to connect, that I'm trying to open. And it encourages me to go back inward and to try to sense if there's any way that I'm in resistance to my life, if I'm in resistance to my reality and resistance to the things that bring me joy. Is there anything where I feel constricted, right? Those are the places I want to focus on, that I want to start thinking about and try to relax and try to be more forgiving of myself and more forgiving of my challenges, and recognize that you can be a totally divine being and be completely connected and in flow with your eternal self and still have challenges, right? It's just that the challenges won't be as hard because you'll be in flow. So the challenges aren't the problem. The problem is our resistance to them. So we're ready now. Like, it doesn't matter if your life is imperfect. It doesn't matter if you don't have all your ducks in a row or if you got some part of your life that's a mess. It's okay. Like, you can still do this now, even with your life exactly as it is today. So who was join me? Who's with me? Let's do it. Guarantees, right? No, there's no obligation, she says. So, okay, you guys, thank you so much for joining today, for being here, sharing the message today. Such an amazing, amazing experience. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you next Friday live. Bye, you guys.